Okay, we're going to be working in lesson 4-6 still, but our focus is going to be down in this area right here. We're going to be looking at pages 3 and 4 today. So if you'll go ahead and find example 5 on page 3. All right, so when we're looking at these right here, they're giving you three different functions here. You've got f of t, you've got g of x, and you've got h of x, okay? And so what they're asking you to do here is they're telling you to use f here, and they're telling you, so you're going to use function f, we're going to use this guy right here, okay? And they're telling you you're going to plug in the 4. So that's what that's telling you to do. All right, so getting started on this first guy here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do 2 times 4 squared plus 3. So now 4 squared 16 times 2 is 32 plus 3 is 35. So f of 4 equals 35. Again, we started talking about that 4 is just what we're plugging in, that's your input, 35 is your output, okay? And just so you know, kind of what we're going to be going into is we're going to be writing these in coordinate points. So your coordinate point here would be 4, 35. Now, I'm not looking for that for your actual final answer. I'm fine if you go ahead and just leave this guy, okay? All right, let's go to the next one now. So now this one is telling us that we are going to be using f, all right? So we're using f, and we're going to be plugging in 1/2. So let's go up here and see what f is. Okay, so f is still the 2t squared plus 3. So I'm going to put 2, and in place of t, I'm going to put 1/2 squared plus 3. Okay, so now you're going to go ahead and square that fraction, and you should get 1/4. 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, plus 3. Now you're going to go ahead, or Rob says we multiply next. So you're going to take 2 times 1/4 and end up with 1/2 plus 3. So you end up with 3.5. So f of 1/2 equals 3 1/2. Again, later on, we're going to be writing these as coordinate points. So you inputted 1/2 and you got out 3.5. Okay. All right. So now we go to the next one. Now this one's just a touch different because it's telling us now we're going to be using g, so we're going to come up here and be using g. But instead of plugging in a number, they now have you just plugging in a variable, okay? So instead of having an x here, all we're going to do is put a w in that place. So we're going to have, in this case here, I kept it so I could see it, we're going to do 3, and instead of x, we're going to put w plus 2. Now, in this case, there's nothing I can clean up. There's nothing that I can do to this side over here. So right here is my answer. Okay? Now, I know this would look a little funky, but if I did ask you to write this as a coordinate point, you would write it, I plugged in w, and I got out 3w plus 2. Okay? All right, so now let's go to the next one. So we're going to plug in g. So we're still plugging into g. But now we're going to plug in an a minus 3, okay? So again, I'm going to be taking this a minus 3 right here, and I'm going to plug it in for that x right there. So it's going to be 3, place of x, I'm putting a minus 3, and then it was plus 2, plus 2. Okay, so now on this guy, you actually are going to have to clean him up a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and distribute that 3 through and get 3a minus 9 plus 2. Now I'm going to combine like terms and put those negative 9 and the 2 together and get 3a minus 7. So g of a minus 3 equals 3a minus 7. Okay, all right, let's go to the next one. Now this is a little different, because now they're actually asking you to find x, okay? So they say if g of x equals 29. Now remember, we started talking in class the other day that anything that looked like this was the same thing as saying y equals 29. It's the same concept, okay? Now g of x, though, tells you which equation we're going to be using. So let's come up here and find g. All right, so g right here. Okay, so we're going to do 3x plus 2. But since I have g of x, I'm going to be plugging it into the g of x part. So in this case, I'm actually going to have 29 equals 3x plus 2 and then solve the equation. So 29 equals 3x plus 2. So now I subtract the 2 over and get 27 equals 3x. I then divide by 3 and get 9. Okay, so now when you're writing your coordinate point on this guy, you got to be a little more careful on this one. Okay, so in this case, your x value would be 9. Your y value, or in this case g of x, is 29. Okay, all right, let's try another one of those. So now this is saying h, so I'm actually going to use the h formula this time. So we're going to be plugging it in to h right here. Okay, so again, they're telling you h of x. They're telling you this guy is negative 11. So we're going to plug in negative 11 right here equals to 2x minus 7. So negative 11 equals 2x minus 7. Now solve the equation. So I'm going to add it over and get negative 4 equals 2x, divide and end up with negative 2 for my x value. Okay, so now when I write that coordinate point, when I plug in a negative 2, I get out an 11. Again, this is just kind of a fancy way to write y. Okay, all right, so now we've already started talking about how to write these in ordered pairs, so that's what they're asking you to do. They're asking you to write these in ordered pairs and then just graph them. So if I'm looking at this guy right here, again, you plugged this in, this is what you got out. So I plugged in a negative 4 and I got out a 1. Same thing down here. I plugged in a 2, because remember, this is in positions of the x's. So I plugged in a 2 and got a 0 out. All right, so now let's go over here and graph real quick. Let's see, so negative 4, 1. So negative 4, 1 would be right around there. Okay, and then 2, 0 would be right there. Okay. All right, so now let's go over to your next page, page 4 here. Okay, and so kind of the same thing you're doing when you're plugging in, but now you've got to look at this and figure out where's it at on my graph up here and finish the coordinate point is really what's going on. So we started working on the other page to understand that this is saying negative 2, comma, what? So I'm plugging in a negative 2, what am I going to get out here? Okay, so I'm going to come up here. Now remember that this is your x value, right? This is x, okay? You're looking for the y value. So if x is negative 2, so right here, if x is negative 2, what's my y value? What's my coordinate point here on the red line, or in this case, the red V? Okay, so in this case, negative 2 is my x. My y value is at positive 2. So I'm going to have a positive 2 here to finish out the ordered pair. Or you can just put it equal to 2 here. Okay, now let's go to the next one. So now this is saying f of 1. Again, if you want to think of it as an ordered pair, do that. 1, what? You input a 1, what do you get out? Okay, so again, these are your x values. Now this one's just a touch trickier here, because if I look at my x value, right, here's 1, well, it's going to be about halfway, right? So if I'm looking here, my y value would be at 0.5 or a half. So again, what's the ordered pair? 1, what? Well, it's going to be 1 and a half. Okay, so again, I don't care which way you write that. I'll take it either way. All right, let's try another one here. Now this one changes. So this is saying x. We don't know x, so I need to figure out what x is, but I know my y value is negative 1. Okay, so let's go to the graph here and let's see if we can figure out when y is negative 1. Okay, now you got to be careful here, because now we're talking about the y-axis. When y is negative 1, what's your x value? Well, this coordinate point right here would be 0, negative 1. So your x value would be 0. So I'm coming over here, and we're going to put 0 in that position. Okay? Or you can say that x equals 0. I don't care which way you do it. Okay? All right, what I'd like you to do right now is I would like to have you pause the video. I want you to try example 8 on your own, and then push play once you finished it up. All right, so let's take a look here. So on this guy, the first guy here, f of 4, right? So my x value is 4. So I'm looking for x's. I'm looking at 4. I come down and find out that my y value is -5. So the ordered pair here should have been 4, -5, or you can just write it's equal to -5. I, again, don't care which way you write it. Either one of those would be acceptable. All right, let's go to the next one. So at 0, so now if my x value is at 0, x is 0, what's your y value? Well, it's at -1. So this would equal -1, or again, you could put 0, -1. Okay. All right, now again, these have a tendency to be a little trickier, because this is saying y equals -2. So we're looking at how do we finish up that coordinate point, okay? So now we're going to come up here real quick. Y is -2. So again, I'm looking on my y-axis. Here's -2. What's your x value? Well, it would be 1, -2. So your x value there should have been 1. Okay? So again, I don't care if you put the 1 in right here or if you just say x equals 1. Same thing to me. And the last guy. Okay, so again, this is your y value, right? Your y equals -3. So what -3? Well, let's go up here and look. Y is at -3. So my y is at -3, right? Your x value would be at 2. So it would be 2, -3. So coming down here, I'm going to put a 2 in here, or you can just say x equals 2. All right, and that concludes the notes for the second day of lesson 4-6.